How to copy and paste keyframes in Photoshop, PC or Mac. To create a timeline, go to Window and Timeline, displays the timeline panel. Go here, Create Video Timeline. Click there and it will create a default length of time for your object. It could be type, it could be a smart object, it could be a shape, image, etc. I'm using type. Select the type. And I'm going to convert it to a smart object, which gives a few more features, such as transformations. So layer and down to smart objects and convert to smart object. So now you can still change the A. You can turn it into B, C, D, change the font, etc. You can double click on the smart objects thumbnail and edit it. Go to the timeline panel and expand this. You can see letter A there. Expand that out. Obviously, it would be different for you. You've got transform, opacity, and style. Now, styles like layer effects, blending modes. You've got opacity, so you can set it to 50% or 0%, and you can modify along the timeline. You can also transform. So click there. With transform, you can change the scale, as well as position, as well as rotation of that letter. And as soon as I click this, you can see a little there, depending on where that video time head is, just their playhead. Just put it there and you can see a little yellow keyframe. That appears there. I can now move this. I can move it along and now I can reposition this. So at this point, it's still got exactly the same position, the same transformation, everything, rotation as before, all the way along. It's got the same. But if I go here, say at this position, I can go up here and as soon as I change it, it will add another keyframe. So I'm just going to change it, rotate it, move it around, resize, double click, and then you can see you've got another keyframe. Say you want to use this first keyframe. I've got here, go back here, I've got that one there, and I just go back, and as soon as I do that, you can see what happens. It just moves it back to that position. But I can go to this one, and I can right click, and you can see copy. Select copy. So with it copied, I can now go along here and I can position it somewhere else. So I'm going to go back here. So that's the time position for the current state. But I'm going to add a keyframe there. And I can go to this one, back here, right click, because if I go here, try it, it doesn't come up. It just says motion, comes up with cut. I don't want that. What I want to do is go here. And that's slightly odd, but you can go here and say paste. And you think, oh, it's going to paste the timeline, the keyframe on that timeline in exactly that position. That would be the logic of it, but it doesn't. So click there and paste. And now what happens, it adds it there where the playhead is. So you can move it along again. So I'm just going to move it along and I can do exactly the same. So go back to this one or go to this one. Doesn't matter. Go to any of them. And I can say, again, paste. And it will paste exactly the same keyframe there. So let's just go to this one now. So if I go here, move it all the way back, and you can see where it is at that point. So you can see now there. And I can select it. And I can do exactly the same thing. I can go copy. So now it's copied that into its clipboard. And I can move that along and position it anywhere, say there. And you can see what happens. It goes back to that original position, back to the original, but I can put it in the center there, in between those two positions that are exactly the same at the moment. And I can go back to this one and I can now say, with it selected, paste. And it will paste that one there, exactly where that playhead is. And I can go to another position, say there, and again, go back to this one. And again, paste, and it will put exactly the same. So what I can now do, as you can see, it goes back right to the start, runs through, shrinks it, rotates it, then puts it back to the start position, runs through, puts it up to there. Then I can go, and then it puts it back to the start position again, and puts it back there, which is quite handy. So you can very rapidly create an interesting animation just by doing that. You can move any of the keyframes. You don't need to keep them in the same position. You might like to decide, I want that to be closer to this one. So you can just move it along, just reposition it there. Now if I move this, and you can see what happens, very small, and then it goes back to the start position. But it's very quick, just quickly does it. So with that selected, always can copy. So make certain it's got yellow. You can copy by right click. So that's copied, and you can move it there. With that still selected, and that's the key thing, it's still selected, I can go to this one. So I can't go over here, which is again is odd, but you have to just go to this. It's just the way it does it. And you can then paste. Doesn't matter if you've got one selected and it's different. It just needs to be a keyframe that's selected. It's very strange, but that's the way it works. The thing stored away, the keyframe stored away in the clipboard doesn't have to match the one you've got selected. As long as you've copied it, that will be the one it uses. And you can say you can position it there. And you can also then move it around. And you can go back to that one. It's now disconnected from that earlier keyframe. You can change it now. Doesn't need to be the same still. So you can resize it. You can rotate it. So let's make it slightly bigger. Rotate it around. Press return. And now you can see what happens. Just goes there and then goes back again very small at an angle and back to the original position. So you can create all kinds of combinations, and you can do this with this one. So you go back to this one, think, oh, that's a good one. As long as you've got it selected, go there, right click and copy. And as long as that's still selected or any other keyframe, doesn't matter, you can still go to anywhere there and you can go copy and paste. You've got that copy and paste, you've got delete as well, but paste. It will be still storing that keyframe information. So paste. And you can see what happens. So it goes there, you've got that size, and there again, you've got exactly the same. And I can go further along and I can select, say, a different one. So I've got that one selected. Now that's very small, that's at the start position. I can go back here and I can still, as long as a keyframe selected, I can now again go there and paste. And at that position, it will be that original one that's stored away in the information, the keyframe clipboard. And you can see you can create very rapidly an animation with a letter just by doing a copy and paste to create it bouncing backwards and forwards in different ways, random ways. And it doesn't need to be just the transform. As mentioned, it can be styles. So you could bring in gradients, you could change, you can go over here, layer, and you go to layer style, and you can say bevel and emboss, gradient overlay. You can add a gradient overlay. Click OK. Now this one doesn't have that little there, that little stopwatch. I don't know what it's called, but stopwatch. I always call it stopwatch. But you can always at any point just click there and you've now got a keyframe. Exactly the same as before. Keyframes along there. Now you've got one for style. And you can do the same. So if you want to, you can right click and copy. You can go along and you can say, oh, let's just go back here. You have to go back to that keyframe. You can't just click here. It's slightly weird. I wish you could, but you can't. Now, I don't know if there's a command there. Nope. You think there might be a keyframes. Oh, you can do it there as well. I wondered if you could do it there. I must admit, I haven't been doing that, but you can go to this down here, this menu, just the far side on the right side, and just go down there. Keyframes, and you can paste. So you can just paste it there. Again, go there, and again, keyframes and paste. So you can probably, let's just deselect that, move it to a different position, maybe select over there. You can still, let's see, keyframe, paste. Yep, you can still do it. You can still use that right. So it doesn't matter about the keyframe. Seems to, however, you will always have a keyframe selected. So that's how it works. So you can create all kinds of different designs. And of course, I haven't changed anything here, but you've got this. I can go up to layer style and I can say layer style, gradient overlay, and I can modify this gradient overlay. So I just move it around. I can maybe change the angle, click OK. maybe not so great, but you can see what happens as you do that. And you can see the gradient comes back in there. For most of the time it's going to be blue because the gradient's just gone off slightly. But you can see it has got that style, and the keyframes exactly the same as before. You can create all kinds of different designs using this approach. Very useful, very quick to create a whole range of designs, and probably a bit easier than just going to keyframes and then going right click, layer style, which is quite a slow process if you want to go through it, setting them up each time. Just copy and paste keyframes, and you can do it very quickly. Hope you found this tutorial of interest. Any questions, please let me know in the comments below. Always great to hear from you. Thank you much.